talking, and she was like, didn't want to talk about it, and I got it out of her, but she's like, so I just saw us get in an accident, and we hit that barrier, and you were the person that was up against the barrier. And she started to cry, and she said, and you were dead. And, she felt it. She's like, I was there. It happened in that moment. And it always, like, stuck with me, because I was like, that I have that thought that we have these multiverses, so for that moment, that frequency aligned, so she saw the other outcome of what could have happened. Maybe that was where, like, the split happens. We kind of talked about in the Mandela episode with multiverses. There's a slit, and when you make a decision, you go through the slits, and it creates two separate universes. So maybe when that split happened, I avoided the accident instead of getting hit. She saw what would have happened had I been hit with that car. So, when you get two choices, you never know what your outcome's going to be whenever you don't choose that option. Well, she saw what was going to happen had I not paid attention and got hit. This is me just theorizing at the very end here. But, like, maybe that's what that was. Which is terrifying, because I could have died that day, but...
Do you think you transitioned to a different parallel universe? Or do you think she transitioned to a different parallel universe?
I mean...
Actually, it would be you if you're the one that died, right? It would be you who transitioning to the new one. Now, this may be a little too personal, but did you notice any differences in individuals after you transitioned? Any new Mandela effects since that happened?
I've never really thought about it, but I could tell you, it's silly, but I don't know, like, I can't think of my high school years very well. I know key points like my soccer and stuff, but people and things seem so distant, like, and I know it's been 10 years, but I generally can, if I make a connection with someone, I remember it forever, type of thing. And so it's weird for me that I feel very distant from that part of my life. And I have a million Mandela effect things that put me in the different category. So maybe that was one of my transition points, was that car accident. Or, well, not in my world, it never happened. Maybe in this one it did. It gets really confusing. She said it was like Final Destination, saw it all happen, felt it. She got hurt too, but she didn't get killed.
Thank you for sharing that. That's very, very interesting story. I kind of got an example of me dying or somebody seeing me getting very injured, but it didn't happen.
Well, tell it.
Oh.
So I was probably, I don't know, 8 at the time, 7 or 8. Dan knows where this is at. So do you know the little camp? You know, in front of the little camp, how that has the steps that go down to the water?
Yes.
Right before that, there used to be a horseshoe throwing pit. Okay. So imagine this, a horseshoe throwing pit and stairs that go right down to the water, right? This is my grandparents' camp. And this goes in with the story. So I just got back from fishing off a boat. I get on the dock and I start walking up the stairs, and I stop at the top of the stairs because my grandfather and my dad are playing each other in horseshoes. So they're chunking the horseshoes back and forth, and then I'm waiting for my dad to chunk his, and he's not chunking it. But I want to like run over to my grandma's camp. I can't remember why, but I wanted to run over there. Of course, me being 7 or 8, I have no patience at all. So I take off running before he throws it, and he decides to throw it as I'm running. And I get past, and I hear him scream my name, and I turn around and look, and he goes, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." He goes, "I just saw the horseshoe go through your head when I threw it." And I'm like, "Well, it didn't. See you later." And took off running, but that right there kind of has me thinking, kind of like Dan's story, maybe right then in a alternate universe or something. I got my head caved in by a horseshoe, and then I just transported over to the next parallel universe. Never even knew it.
Damn.
We need to pay attention to our near-death experiences and stuff like that, because maybe they aren't so near-death.
Yeah.
So I don't know why, but that just reminded me of another past story, which I think I might have actually died
Shit.
because I've brought up this story and no one's remembered it, but I have the scar for it. It would happened probably when I was like 6 or 7. My oldest brother was on the roof redoing the shingles. Well, no one was watching me, and of course I see a ladder and I see my oldest brother on the roof. You know, I'm climbing up that fucking thing and I'm gonna go see what he's doing. Which I didn't realize that since he was the only one up there and no one else was really helping him, he was throwing the shingles down where the ladder was at. So, of course, I didn't know. I didn't realize it. Even though all the shingles that he tore off were at the bottom of the ladder.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I end up climbing up, and when I looked up, a shingle had hit me in the forehead. Now, I fell off the ladder. I don't remember anything after that. All I remember is like the next day, no one's talked about it. There was like no blood anywhere, nothing. And I told my oldest brother about it, like actually beginning of this year. I was telling him about it because we were looking at, the shingles of the house. And I was just like, yeah, do you remember that time you threw, like you were on the roof doing the shingles and you threw a shingle down and it hit me in the head? He looked at me, he's like, no. I was like, you don't remember that? This is how I got the scar. He's just like, I don't remember any of that. I asked my mom, she don't remember none of that either. Yeah, so I have a scar from that because I remember that shit
Weird.
fucking perfectly well. But no one else remembers it, and I don't remember anything after I got hit by it.
That is fuck, dude. Glitch in the Matrix, man. Glitch it. That reminds me of this story we have from somebody called Lamp. That
Yeah,
is
let's
hear
probably
it.
one of my favorite stories on the internet
Yeah, I mean,
from an
Is
individual.
it really long?
You want to cover that one right now? So this story is called Lamp, and I came across this story probably, I don't know, a couple years ago. And I always come back every now and then to read it because I just think it's a somebody's personal story that I thought was very odd but super intriguing, interesting, and I just kind of wanted to share it because it is a glitch in the Matrix. So this individual used a throwaway account. If you aren't familiar with a throwaway account, basically you make a fake account so nobody knows your real account and doesn't know who you are telling the story because the person wanted to stay anonymous. So the story goes, my last semester at a certain college, I was assaulted by a football player for walking where he was trying to drive. Note, he was 325 pounds and I was 120 pounds. While unconscious on the ground, I lived a different life. I met a wonderful young lady. She made my heart skip and my face red. I pursued her for months and dispatched a few jerk boyfriends before I finally won her over. After 2 years, we got married, and almost immediately, she had our daughter. I had a great job, and my wife didn't have to work outside of the house. When my daughter was 2, she, my wife, had us a son. My son was the joy of my life. I would walk into his room every morning before I left for work and would kiss and hug them goodbye. One day, while sitting on the couch, I noticed that the perspective of the lamp sitting in our room was odd, like inverted. It was still in 3D, but just wrong. It was a square lamp base, red with gold trim on 4 legs, and a white square shade. I was transfixed. I couldn't look away from it. I stayed up all night staring at it. The next morning, I didn't go to work. Something was just not right about that lamp.
I left the couch only to use the bathroom at first. Soon I stopped that too, as I wasn't eating or drinking. I stared at that fucking lamp for 3 days before my wife got really worried.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 days before she was I would have been worried after an hour. What kind of weed are you smoking? Anyways, so where was I here? Yeah, so he had stared at the lamp for 3 days. Wife got worried. So then she had someone come and try to talk to me. By this time, my cognizance was breaking up, and my wife was freaking out. She took the kids to her mother's house just before I had my epiphany. The lamp is not real. the house is not real. My wife